Yay, debate.
You email?
Yeah, I did. Maybe just down. Yep.
It
was. It then from resort to deterrence. Russian organizations and these by 2025 commitments to state presence ensure regional governments heightens the risk of escalator or flashpoints and locks in environmental collapse before 2024. Russian communities serve as one or expanding of Russian private business transport already strategy. The government usually below is by the children from our organization large including their factory to things to consult the origin dominance including this military infrastructure facing the effective stability and high with the concept with elevated environmental flashpoints the first sort of disrupt existing market factories raising potential NATO country survey military regional stability as well the military potential risk of high end or the government's likely now stressing accusations we diplomatic caution is key number 21 accusation risk of the situation that has been done in Russian vision performing escalation risk force operating for close for somebody statement or difficulty has statement plans or ambitious resource having realized confrontation non even push resources critical Russian defenses of how many side of funding is actually knowing the Russian state versus will be my concerns by the ACB of decision US should adopt the procedures rate the video business combination of critics for drastic sure before the posture of state single is not in office of operation they know working expansions into source move with Russia there's many of Russia already the order of the side of people shortage of Russian great Russian capability easily isolated more the race possibly the race legislator US something like the national prediction kind of service spiral and only US Russian war cost extinction for 17 before Russia that's what it happens to cost doing those lost agriculture perhaps for around 80% of the loss of the world. So probably in a particular situation, Russia will have sort of agree. In exchange, the only possibility in the Russian region will go around likely or likely to result in the extinction risk possibly greater than use of Russia. Russia going to information security realize people Russian grants 20. It's an offer another way how they love driving around communications of the government and response to people hearing to their communities. What is push all information to Russia to everything maintains their could be disrupting people. The objectives of going to communication laws and the finding is this agent, but simply rating that one should be enough. And extinction better 19, worst case of the leaders is way from disrupt the global internet is totally listed. And it's going to be your power water go would have ordered to the disruptors networks without ever seeing one for medical and utilizing people stretching 1,000 miles away from the game of Russia communication by society. Under the communities sort of larger scale. The United States only large council around the CNC the treaty key to resolve current and future Russian conversion key from workforce or regulations on 20 so search for other students for rates of the rest the class what has already nothing already domain war domain was military includes what the coverage is really much of the only large council going on for the short side of the interesting last the all you guys should go and was you know by time was the global reference over data running head versus Russian types of long integrated just holding close they resolving between fundamental systems or anything for some just no longer reduction control sort of expensive view of authority includes provision. The order resolve the United States and organization resolve disputes peaceful access the law of the CTA will credibly come with much laws in central current future disputes in Arctic and checks Russian influence later 16 when they are to enable use of Arctic to save Russian funding second funding over teaching the money to telecom ops and giving like the position to better resolve Russian influence from business establishment will carry out ground rules the return in the passage that was really concerned when this calculation part he won't have they only currently live from any work but for showing what CW was in our son country or the weeks we go as high mission creative jacket even honestly small child nature the region of our Canada 21 and Berkeley out of the order of the water region for racing for ourselves consider the truth of the region it's the around to see the straight on before the line this is the future spreading cooperations being the so this is question is they were strategic compensation what cooperation the futures of the cast every single time 16 hours in volumes and isolated international cooperation versus some of the water Russian was facing access to test and was text companies by coming here we released our new keto successful large corporation of solving robotics we want to use these finding leadership we find leadership and the other I showcase first process rooms where we're working together to trust which resolving guys to go but the United States conventional law singular advantage she was warming our guys I think she has access to warming but black carbon nitrogen oxide method will lead us 20 There's a function for wars and wars that human beings are ideas are respectful lives of based on what don't dedicated to the house fighting discovery people have one trillion doesn't have a for this in the direct punishing before right like for that's all thought of easy more 100 degree and natural toxic energy action medium or the they reduces your channel nearly and for because each size for already wants 23 channel geotaxes with the unity with what I'm seeing this entire mission for the just looking at that in life for increasing our ways with right with 95% person then we all possibly causing this little like first make such a person me make your assistance for the group without the laws that raise your warming 30 here we never should have different receiving natives these laws of work has been public makers very people just living like well I think the largest from other friends since it's not Italian it is for any people in the street but they brought the person bringing responsible for the Israel and grant that how people international worker wars to international companies self to them have security of the other enemy the never carbon rather than the compassion government the class is already comes power environmental protection law to actually bring about for some of the greenhouse ratification was but we should just say the social receives the same rights as the world of the president also the resolutions will be already trigger like what I'm seeing people absolutely property or something that's about 30% of the relevant and our provider profession or law you can bring any page you won't balance the problem desire to from the heating as actions to repairs you should only more clearly explain the problem and rights to spend right so it's human action to be done with the countries where the house is really under usually which happens under social fractions of the external and caused by action caused by action but beyond how they happens to cause a combination however it's having people be judged more honest but when we think that their hands and morality happens that just spend news we never because we won't how we're supposed to do what consequences we can recently test these which is the best we can proceed before we begin to be sent to longer by nature to utilitarianism and it's likely to discover power devices even more true projections of a scale way everything holds what you do it's just bad to come out of what that we're sending you very like they never surprising themselves all the time they have the national government really so it's going to send you with that bad experience has to be also be worse than the different high and negative reasons I suspect Judge Jacob will want to see anything else truly breaking news for will always lose situation for our shipping this because we never answer in ways you means to the true or will be impossible.
Again?
Yeah.
What was the last thing you said?
Spec Judge Jacob.
The one and C?
Yeah.
Okay. What is spec judgment for?
Sure. You have to specify whether the county is going to judge Jacob the county.
Whether we will judge kick it? You have to tell you which one I'm gonna go for?
You can say, well, like, yes. Our argument is that either you don't get judge kick or you should start the debate in the one and C. You mean, like, if you.
Okay, but we don't have to tell you which one we're gonna.
No, you have to tell me which counterclaims will like have judge kick. So i.e. if
Okay.
we, yeah.
Okay, why did this miscalculation occur in the article?
Why is miscalculation occurring? Okay,
Mhm.
sure. The rumor evidence about diplomatic posturing and mutual accusations is good about that. It talks about how Russia and NATO meet up through like how that sparks like disagreements when like troops pass by each other during military demonstrations.
So like troops pass by each other and Russia launched the nuke. I'm like wondering what the line is.
No, our argument is also due to like the coercive undertone stuff that is like also.
So like ships pass and have coercive undertones, so Russia launches a nuke.
Well, our argument is that when like major powers are concentrated in one single area, i.e. all of NATO plus the US and Russia, then that increases the likelihood of conflict, especially because.
Well, I understand that you think tensions are high. I'm asking you to draw out any scenario that could cause Russia to launch a nuke from the Arctic because of conflict in the Arctic.
Sure, expansionism. We say expansionism will happen by 2025. That is.
I don't know what that means. Like I don't know what that means. Can
Right,
you
Russia
like
completed.
draw out a scenario for me why the Russia
Russia
would launch
completed
a nuke?
expansion into the Arctic. It secures like mining rights over like.
So Russia
continental
wants
shelf.
mining rights and the US stops them from doing that and then they launch a nuke.
No, our argument is that the US is able to deter Russian action, but only by presenting a united front of close.
Oh, that's like doesn't answer the question. I'm not asking about solvency, I'm asking about the impact.
Sure.
We spent like a minute and a half on this and I wanna hear a scenario.
Sure, the impact-
Russia sees it as necessary to launch a nuke.
Right, Russia sees it necessary to launch a nuke when the US is not there to effectively deter Russian presence in the Arctic.
Okay, look, that's
deterrence only
solvency again, like my first answer
Right,
on
so-
the case is going to be Russia will not.
Alright, sure,
you're gonna
absent the
take this
affirmative,
out,
Russia
like,
will,
you're not
absent the affirmative, Russia will launch a nuke by 2025 when it has completed expansion.
And this doesn't answer the question. I'm asking, what causes them to launch that nuke? What action does the US take or does another country or
Right.
NATO take that causes Russia to launch a nuke?
Sure, challenging Russian claims to like the seabed without.
Okay, so
like, the
Russia's
US.
like, I want that part of the seabed, and the US is like, no, I want that, and then they launch a nuke at us?
No, our argument is that the US backing up that they need to like go through proper processes and like diplomatic engines, i.e. the CLCS, is
Like-
able to like ensure diplomacy with
Okay,
Russia
that's-
and lead to
okay,
peaceful
so-
negotiations.
What, the brink for conflicts, the only evidence you've read in the past year is Fulci, and it says Arctic strategy will be revised by mid-2025. You've highlighted to new risks will arise by mid-2025. Why is
Yes.
that inaccurate highlighting the fact?
Why is it not? Like, it says new strategies will happen by mid-2025, because that there are shifts and updates to this calculation.
Setting. Four. Thank you. It's one, two. Thank you for a second.
Yes, I meant to plug in.
First off, the United States proposed ratifying including given the ultimate collective understanding of the United States Convention on the Law by changing the standard for its power to prohibit information collection, the cost of this harm impact on the collection should provide the coastal state, and if the group enters into the fourth component of the convention to include the non-recognized article 19 of the Convention together, as with international law standards including specific research deployment and development of American intelligence. Article 9 stops the vessel to gain intelligence gathering not entitled to the fact that kills maritime intelligence in implementing its all 21. Ratification may not pass the different credits cannot use and it will show film under exemption law federally increasing vessels turning off the US federal land when it alternate article 19 preventing on federal lands so for different against the consequences of harm impacts. The counterplan itself has civil clear that we're to say yes, have finished the reason US leverage now 121. The US considered an human as a session that should include article 19 US law there one possession of the best and article and further may be absent to adopt and American intelligence gathering suitable to avoid conflict relation in 24. The American intelligence has been orders to the national security right and national security line as the American intelligence the each American state reinforcing the national defense strategies and competes one of social mandates conditional and sessions fundamentally the same that has 21. To the US conditions, you know, devastating legal laws, they don't put it outside the position, they 1139, see the reservation exemptions, 230 means the A option, and D. The audit taking instructions that just say judgment should be done, B should be less than immediate 794. So according to that restriction should run liability because the laws immediately affect supposed in the future, and yes, judgment take for all kinds of laws, conditionality, logical, think of the rules with the worst that sounds good. Next. The counterplan, the United States proposes an assistance with dialogue, crisis management, introduction, and conflict prevention, work with NATO, to fight defensive improvements to secure Russia from the house and the military, and commercial aircraft and ships, financially providing investment development, large scale deployment of ocean fertilization projects that have hypoxic zones, and the issue of laws like commission technology, and not consider artificial ocean, and fertilization is fighting because by customary international law, plank 1 and 2, health conflict 1 and 2, it's literally the counterplan advocate, insert yellow and what you see, Brewer 21, plank 3, false, 4, solve warming 2024. Who must hold permit except of the atmosphere, ocean, and fertilization, is very good, by yourself, and the carbon dioxide, it's probably because it's usually they can't achieve behind whatever the removal of things, single limits, and not correct. I also learned fresh water and the groups and sometimes undertaking generation, motion, and fertilization, to the for that. How long years want to repeat? You both bans are fertilization, it violates Article 194, Register 15. You go for the defense solution over prohibit transfer of our heads in one, and another article, then one and we're going to take all missions and non convolution thing. I'm going to defend the writing for certain you will just bring sort of go to do the through product pollution, introduction to something to the environment, include also prevented, reduce it or to directly violate the right by level 94, reduce the atmosphere to transfer next up. Counterplan, the United States should withdraw opposed under consideration if Congress and the President should approve. Opposed and exposed, you can get congressional executive agreement, the Senate. Then sue the President for that on the ground that circumvents the Senate's exclusive advisory step power. Equals currently ways to set ratification, but Supreme Committee as congressional executive agreement policy avoid faulting the corporate agreement as constitutional king 07. Eagles right by opportunity to condition NDCA is with the President Barnes to withdraw also the Senate consider NDCA. Other Congress scholar taking CA is the President of Foundation of the President support meeting on other issues. CJ would need to prevent of the evidence to agree to clarification CA constitutional prefers broad usage code 2. So CA is not been finding this ambiguity in the laws of the government to response to the word to the affidavit government. Public means government not directly. I just start the difference between supporting constitutionality and bond given that I'm looking at the care of the presenting ambiguity, resulting in development of project draft sustainability, and broad CA uses preferable the clergy process majority mass with law which goes back to multilaterals and building during 24. Treaty on setting orders with the legend of various difficulties and high voltage and the majority of the ability to achieve the medical of the measure of issues made under the law of the ratified the longer set the latter, the longer and outside success, the administration and the ability to negotiate against the future harm, the procedure body limits ability to lead lawmaking future and the US to maintain global leaders of incredibly and effective foreign policies also impacting of like 15. Town limited put channel road safety there is the needed develop every region of environment to make more into what demanding area having multi muscle go both presented but bridges are line of scope the latest financial for security and NATO compete executive units are distinct process for nobody to GDP 22 executive units training different best lot of different highly completed between first and minority to support executive units not next up. Yeah, ceiling raise will pass through the traffic of people on board, but it's closed PCSP that's Mascaro 410. Republicans are only approved the budget framework, don't work, satisfies the OT. Do people that my budget plan one more also the next step Jackson until they ahead and don't believe the future taxes the majority that do be conservatives or concerned in health and hold us the aware of the return the traffic. Treaty ratifications they were in the middle capital 410 and focus change of legislative priorities Patrick 14. Focus they gave the shot that's about the field of world units to think trees fair and we are to cross our administration to expand our school capital ready for different work let's be emergency work week of order ready to raise environment to have pleasure our each more problem the second show my focus where has hard rights trees on one verse topic like on the picture of the street building as a high person I love the mighty global within the hardship of public party republic to treat and the conspiracies and default kills what it is it causes global constellation and failure and atmosphere cyber attacks Carol 23. The US protocol trying to hold their organization to change the other advising nations the directive on the table and follow on my just the usual financial side of the country. Every pocket sugar rising markets from the kind of those getting because military every pocket sugar the global splitting the river organization of our finance other government officer access the health running in American economy educated protecting from me and the intelligence cyber operation and how to use distributing the by times can public I got finished quality analysis of the development taking it out of the become cyber operation and management hospital and related by advanced weapon radio infrastructure command case. One, actually skip 1, 2, every impact card is a decade old, card from 2024 says revising Arctic strategy between 2025 not conflict with 2025, I'll insert yellow 3, the Russian and work the Arctic agents will like class of new legislation for 23. Likelihood of Russian union disaster is excellent notion that consider work with love to do the debate but also settle with reference to nuclear but then to do more time in the street the better source of hate to do so this for 11 of the more resources of the rest of the building in Russia work is a popular report for lack confidence to government leaders whatever country that would say the dog of the dark calls for orders as high market the more level of good independent factor data retaliation cause operational data who would understand the data of the factor of the launch week 11 B US Special Corporation able to stand down most recent evidence about that 318. US Arctic Corporation reducing risk and nuclear work and the River Lever, the meeting between the joint practice the Arctic Corporation and the military that has the corporation policy decided the policy act to have that climate hazard down to the plan the plan regulation will significantly reduce obstacles to US Russia and scientific cooperation, got it scientific cooperation, C, the references will never actually insert yellow, 4 can't solve cables, and especially can't solve Russia solve cutting cables because 9 is a duty by people about 8 years, after that have not one of the 489 cables have each age is not a verb, B, run different slots, that's possibly 18. County Hall of Safety numbers setting the numbers to hazard multiple cable to transmission and anything multiple hazard with summary multiple summary cable leading letting you rather take advantage of redundancy C to impact the construction bringing your approved science in 24. The reason that the cable damage there were no observable impact in manufacture everyone's willing to get significant redundancy due to the quality of the rest measures the best illustrates resiliency of the internet repair and on the European internet infrastructure were made. One can't solve warming Russian invasion of Ukraine is suspended. Our council meeting definitely zone 24. In light of Russian invasion, is heavily causing of Russian invasion of mail, meaning the council to the territory bodies by definition appear to know and we putting question in the future of the council. 2 can't see Russian only Russian emissions. Carrying 23. It's really the part guys representing increasing to whether you can emission or reduce by every will guys 2022 was bringing the charge of points of new research project projects also by the low emission scenario.
Great. I get a mock doc.
I just marked 2 cards in this one. Yeah. I marked.
Well, skip the first one, right?
Yeah. I marked.
The napkin is marked at cooperation.
Scientific cooperation.
I think that's.
Yeah, I think that's it actually. I just skipped the first one.
And everything else in the dollars, right?
Yeah, so call.
Right.
Some tags for like cut like there. No, that's fine.
Competition stuff on the the competition stuff on the espionage kind of plan, where do you define like certainty?
Right, define certainty.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Why?
I defined ought as meaning should and should as meaning
Right,
sure.
Why does the 2.6 search keep an immediacy then?
Because ought must be certain and immediate.
Why?
Sure, Merriam-Webster says ought means should. Summers says that should means more than desirability, but it means that it is
Right, so
immediately
it doesn't say
effective.
certain.
Because it's more than desirability is a must.
Immediately effective, but it doesn't say certain.
Because it says more, sure, the part that says certainty is more than desirability is a must.
That's fine, status of common funds,
They're all conditional.
cool, why is Judge Pink a logical extension of condo?
Because of all the reasons I'll give in the 2 NR to justify conditionality, the judge should apply those to their analysis of fact funds as well.
So you get to justify Judge Pink now through condo, you get to justify condo in the later speech,
Yeah, because you haven't said under that.
right? The rumor evidence, it says like there's no venue for like security issues and that Russia wants to avoid like extended conflict, like why does this mean like why does it solve our scenario?
Wait, I'm sorry. Which, the counterplan?
Yeah, they mentioned.
Okay, I don't really understand what the question was asking. I can explain why it solves. Well, sure, you understand the question?
Right.
Okay, I can explain why it solves. So there are 2 parts of the counterplan. First is it creates a venue for dialogue on security issues in the Arctic. The countries who would be on that venue would be US, Canada, Denmark, Norway, and
Well, how do you
Russia.
solve competing mining claims without like CLCS or like any other like regulatory mechanisms on this?
Because we can do that through a venue of dialogue.
But ISA has authority on all deep sea.
Sure, the ISA might have authority over those things, but we can talk about issues like,
So we should break the law and like usurp the ISA's authority to ensure Russia Arctic cooperation.
okay, so first of all, I don't know how
That's
escalation would happen from a seabed dispute. Second is that the dispute that results from that can be handled in the security, in the dialogue.
fine. Debt ceiling. What's the impact of readiness, like when does it happen?
Really soon.
Why?
The CARE evidence says that it would escalate global hotspots because it means that other countries know that our military budget is degraded, we're no longer modernizing our military, we're no longer conducting troop trainings.
Military
And
budget
therefore they
decrease- the military budget decreased under Biden, why does that like?
Not nearly to the extent it would happen after the plan, because if we default on our debts, then it means that no one else will invest in US bonds. Therefore, the most trustworthy bond is no longer trustworthy. So like one of the biggest things that brings in revenue for the country is no longer bringing in revenue, and therefore we have to make military budget cuts.
So no,
Or
it's 5, right? Fine. What is espionage that this CEA advantage?
you said it again.
ACE, that's being launched, that is CEA intervention. Oh, wait.
One, two, espionage counterterrorism, politics, decide, CEA contemplated against counterterrorism.
Yes. What she said. So, we're gonna have to talk.
Now, however, whether research avenues not like 2020 weapons now will be left for a good place to check on Russian expansion by giving the US the table and table one pressure sets is what is never only we have a specific timeline for impacts and Russian war ways where Russian military capability has risk of nuclear claims and account discount escalation calculation even does the two of the Arctic the subtool options intentions low tensions or misleading that was dropped off the overseas scenario only putting book sanctions rate and written scenario for section that point C4 and you can see that the high solves every single impact towards not substantial it was the TKO next on case. First, the shipment evidence continue to report that they have enough news to know even to this company to take over. When they see evidence as long as there are any unequal reports of terms existing companies always likely to straight drop the point that they're breaking down about expansions and mining the Arctic CO2. Actually, we're not going for cables and not going for warming. The counterline. First, probably the affirmative and flex 1 resolve the map and if the UN doesn't proceed, you also may see the threat of the US is leaving a submission to make the change the text of the blockchain permit account 8 manages on the horizontal conditional session is the entire calculation. Each ship is not certain or the reverse with 50 when it comes to legal by terms of the big difference in which you watch the action and all the all the show and because all the words colors that we don't consider these many through patterns or right but it's the right not German not for German never makes me 5 hours and don't talk you can search your rational the key job when you see what's only I don't think you turn your wrong application or trust the US leadership with your important questions for the purpose to report the technology we don't and because we're from researching sort of 1920, which is 29 to 10. The home settlers the different some years ago, 1920, where when consider use the time to back to the original part of the defense. By the affirmative terms that benefit, like it's coming out from Russia for to keep solve plastics, their emphasis and count. Why would you say within 200 miles? We're first from 24 to 7. That's so next ever also over on 20 minutes to the targets are 200 miles away. And nothing said articles that are doing actually purpose in a question of given article 90 to always surveilling over to the UAE. But while we see the research so they was really tempted always wanted in 1950 when he was already party and before this so the fact that private minister passion was a key intelligence of also become digital for and the name was record when he was in the training so always the connection from his people having to the future issue for the dinner of gratitude for 20 prices in come force the field the gap seeing this at first they're extreme trying to actually slip that word without one yelling which is my point my interpoint pretty quick the king and 21 is what we want to learn that on these are sort of was right field of this so with the segregation points in the key question and so we use other mechanisms of put that default no impact. That is the same. Was actually 21. Because not for her the other workers and all. Think about in terms of this, and will be resources and enhanced by for 7 double which is the global demand. You said for second so kind of set of positive hopes of the diverting. They are in the innovation can more range for one for policy changes. And that changing they have to move more to more kind of what should trials such as they will level specific one of dollar rich. Your financial levels and currency were PES 14 or reserve purchase on the rates of better the goal without going needs of passion with less than I will for the advantage of the war. It's pretty much for the cost of over of these things, one of us might choose one of these things. But not know which are coverage of events occurs with this necessity, and conditional feel as valid as possible for us and voter fair to be everything that could be right. And the original counterpoint answer one of those other structure behind our house. So accessory. See, yeah, you counterpoint. First, permanent vote, two permanent counterpoint is the way from between eliminate three no internal. Those are the reason was simply internal the future commercial power, you know, impact commercial powers as well. Zero or the impact internal seven not of the laundry list. See case search results of the terminal four. Counterpoint fails. As the church which directs or can count for power only be legally. But right from this really something like this counter results that's when you see that would be serving these keys solving from that was the problem. You see that from the as counterpoint at all. And then the yeah should what we read the definition should does not require so these four these policies different from emergency policy for granting policy legal policy. Getting how action was taken all these and getting explained policy all here about that further. And perfect counter others resolving to know better limited function for existence just why it has the determinants still high and that kind of catching up function of master domain for recent after object to be perpendicular for the content all the addition running and the deficit that doesn't do money. Also.
Yeah, you should have during prep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start now. We start with safety.
The conditional feel bad.
What is that?
Sure, we think that reading like a uniqueness counterpoint and like having a conditional is bad. We think that it's a vote for fairness. The other voters counterpoint that compete off of certainty and immediacy are bad. That's it. Or actually, no, textual function counterpoints must be textual and functional.
Why is that voted?
Because it destroys like because it's better for debate and you violate it, it's better for education. Obviously.
Am I ready for order? It is the advantage counterplan. Then the espionage counterplan. Then CEAs. Then politics. Then the Arctic effect.
Just.
You good? Okay. Dropped disad iron fertilization boosts the amount of phytoplankton in the sea that solves warming. I'll start on the second, for third and fourth planes phytoplankton are heated up carbon out of the air because they constantly convert CO2 into oxygen like carbon removal technology. Warming causes extinction, it causes irreversible tipping points, which I conceded from the one I see evidence. They answer this like an advantage counterplan, which it is not. We read a plank to increase ocean iron fertilization, which is iron fertilization that gives us uniqueness because the counterplan means that it means that the technology will be used now. But the link comes from the Richards evidence. Hugo's rulings means that OIF is technically classified as pollution and thus banned. That means that OIF is inconsistent with the app. Those are the third and fourth planks of the counterplan that I'm extending. Now, the warming magnifies their Arctic advantage. Ice melts faster. And demand becomes more crucial, which causes conflict. One, magnitude. Warming triggers cascading breakdown of ecosystems, resource wars, and other knock-on effects. The amalgamation of those outweighs. Two, probability, unpredictable, and countless knock-on effects ensures that it causes extinction. Three, time frame. Pinpoints are coming out and irreversible. That's their own evidence. Time frame to error is not viable. One, time frame is just a probability argument. Intervening on first check just means that short-term scenarios are more probable than long-term scenarios, but it's totally unlikely that one scenario causes extinction. It's more likely that the whole system, like warming, that causes a bunch of cascading effects, will cause extinction. Two, if you think time frame outweighs the warming outweighs, can see the 2 points are coming out. We can see that from the 180 evidence, which means time frame flips neg. Now, it's just a drop disad, which is all I have to answer is perfectly both, which is just not viable, and they haven't answered the competition evidence. Extend 1 and see Richards. It's mutually exclusive. If we expand projects for iron fertilization, we wouldn't use them because it would violate UNCLOS. Article 194 says that not to risk damage to the ecosystem, including OIF, for ocean iron fertilization that directly violates the article. 2. By playing part 2 of treaty requires implementing legislation to follow the treaty, so they cannot go for the permit as violate United Nations entity. The parties to the treaty must respect the law and related to bound 3. Uniforms and the law reservations, Article 87. The otherwise convention exclusive prohibition on all reservation. 3. Only ratifying parts of the treaty wrecks its credibility. But it says 11. Reservation means that when a treaty for purpose to sue the certain provisions the treaty members involved in constitutional reservation and attracted in considerable criticism over the treaties when the treaty nation attracts into a condition. Well, that will become back to already argues that vote to criticism already dismakes of supporters of television. Okay, should have been strong in public commitments and national principles essentially. And have a gesture. If we try to go further, no impact because only Russia war caused distinction. No, that is just the only war that caused distinction, not the only impact that caused extinction. And we have conceded from the one, and we've conceded from the 1AC that war caused extinction from science in the 1AC. We only contested solvency. Use bait map. His impact is at 100, and we learned that their impact is not at 100 on case. That's all. Now the planks 1 and 2. The other planks of the counterplan resolve any external offense. The plank 1 it says the 180 rumor evidence flows neg. It promotes the host of alternative policies that solve like a new venue for dialogue surprise of the US, Canada, Denmark, and Norway and Russia. Rumor also advocates for the US to go on the defensive and focus on crisis management, risk reduction, and conflict prevention. Their evidence says that it's solved. There are no deficits when it resolves the possibility for mistalk and misunderstandings in the region. That's their evidence. Plank 2 says that the US NATO ship plan defense improvements and discourage Russia from harassing aircraft and ships. That could look like a reinforcement plan or rearrangement of defensive operations, which is dropped. No perm links to that benefit because the perm answer above includes ratification of UNCLOS means OIF is impossible. Even if it can't solve mining, it solves all of the other conflicts, so most of the case, and I will answer the mining stuff below. Use sufficiently framing ways all accepting against that benefit. It's not a yes no question. 2. Judge take logical extension of condo and illogical to take over the world worse than scope, which is conceded justification for the 1 and 2. Espionage. Can concede the perm test competition, not adequacy. I'll answer process. I'll answer condo first. The conditional beyond just question of conditionality and interpretation. We get what we did. A real world. Don't either object the African include status code that means today people defend status code and kind of like the simulation of real world decision making. B risk averse. Next, are scared to try new things because if they guess wrong, lose the 1 and C. That means life for a fallback strategy. B a conditionality is key to incentivize next to do research and find new ways to engage the app. C make flex actually they're not flowing. So go to cross cancels. Project counter plans are good. One, counter answers the rest of it. Two, process about the information about the process of the process are good because they give us key insight into legislative processes that are repeated in real activists in the real world and finding ways to pass new policies. Key to make ground no bill just had on this topic. It's answers to certain meetings. There's no document for that other than the process of stuff, reduce feasibility, anything else, that substances and unpredictable shifts to the question of debate. Okay. CEOs can see the purpose of competition. Debt ceiling can see the defense. No dollar hedge causes wars because I'll concede that it will pass inevitably because of the midpoint and all the other arguments. Warming turns it that was above. Two, no time frame analysis, no conflict in 2025, just a revision of strategy in 2025. Every piece of evidence is from decades ago. They have not read a card about the impacts in the last year, let alone the last few years. No Russia war. Hickman says Putin will never launch a nuclear weapon. One, he's bogged down in Ukraine and does not want to waste more money and materials in the Arctic. Two, he's not suicidal. He knows that we will launch our nukes right back at Moscow and we will all die. Three, the only reason he will launch a nuke is because it's popular, but he knows that the war is not popular because of Ukraine, so he won't even try. Miscalc doesn't get this out of this because no scenario for miscalc will just all drawn out and crossed, and Putin will not care to launch a nuclear weapon because of all the reasons above. Arctic is unique, does not get it out of them either because our arguments are contextual to the Arctic, Second is that the Arctic is a place for cooperation, not conflict. Our evidence from Marx is that meetings between the US and Russia prove that we are pursuing joint projects on visas, travel, research, climate, sea ice, etc. The Arctic is a place for regional stability recently. The plan for this cooperation is new and their evidence is so old, not a single one from this year, or even from the post-Ukraine conflict. Like, they've only said the Arctic scenario, warming turns it, 100% disad, less than 100% case. Plus, counterplans solves the case. Only out was theory, but answer or dispute doesn't solve, it means cause us to go to process counterplans and doesn't solve next flex because they get to choose the 2 NR. And reasonability answers all the theory.
Cool.
3 or 5.
Yeah, give me a second to set it. Right. Sorry, not. Yes, pretty much kind of fun, often extended.
Yep.
issue for this debate is that 1AC Heineken was conceded and extended, even if it wasn't substantial. Debate is a game of technicality, and it was dropped, so it starts at 100. Anything else is interventionist. First is that Heineken resolves all their elements, and Heineken says that when we engage in close and diplomatic equals like close, that increases Arctic diplomacy. Arctic diplomacy is able to solve every single impact, i.e., the Arctic serves as a future reserve for governance. When Russia and US are able to work together, it signals to other countries that the Arctic is a place where cooperation can happen. The Arctic Council regains power to do things like regulation, warming regulations, etc., etc. They did not extend any of the assumption deficits versus warming, so it proves that regulations can still be enforceable. Either way, it proves that the Arctic Council bargaining power that increases with Heineken and the Kilpatrick evidence proves that it encourages international norms over climate change and pollution, which is able to solve their warming advantage. Listen, there's only an impact to warming if they win that we can't solve it. Heineken was straight conceded. It was straight conceded. It says it solves every impact. It says, and plus, like, part of the case is about how UNCLOS is able to promote warming regulations. Heineken says the Arctic cooperation is a site for governance and is able to signal to other actors about international norms. Proves that we can solve the terminal. There was not an answer to it, so it starts. It's literally said we solve every impact. The case stuff. First, there wasn't a deficit to the Heineken import or any sort of thing of diplomacy. If anything, we increased diplomacy, which is good. Next, they say we didn't read a card within the past few years. No, our argument is that the Milwaukee evidence proves that expansionism happened by 2025, and that disagreements are inevitable when Russia expands, which leads to miscalculation. They say no miscalculation there, but no, they don't have a warrant. They just asserted. They say the Arctic is a player release regional stability, but they've conceded the coercive undertones that as long as coercive undertones exist, there's a risk of miscalculation. Even if it looks peaceful right now, it's not in actuality, which is our argument. Next, miscalculation happens faster than the warming scenario. There's no word for why warming happens faster. They just say that we have written a warming impact for them and have not done the time frame and time frame to doing stuff. What we're doing now first is that that time frame is not a probability argument. There's no word for why it is. They just assert it. Next, conceded the diplomacy scenario and the mistalk scenario basically goes on answer because they did not respond to the one error line by line on it. It proves that our case also is super probable because it starts at 100. Then drop case, which means that we get to ask way. Next is time frame. Miscalculation happens faster. Our argument is that expansionism happens by 2025, and then miscalculation is inevitable by then, which proves that we all die and warming does not matter. Warming does not matter in a world where we both die, where we all die. Next, in the permutation, we're going for both. One in C Richards, it doesn't matter. Because it will answer the rest of the stuff below. They say becoming party to a treaty requires land implementing legislation to follow the treaty. Sure, but they've conceded that ought means should and should is advisory. There's no reason why every single article it means that the US is legally binding to follow them. China violates UNCLOS all the time, which proves that if we're winning the should and ought definition, that proves it's advisory. UNCLOS doesn't allow reservation. Sure, we can accept every single plank and every single article as advisory, which means permanent vote is fine. We can still violate. Even if they win, like some risk that the counterclaim is competitive, there's no impact. There's only risk of ours, and they do not solve UNCLOS. There's no word for why they do.